Good morning. If you are in Australia or New Zealand, I guess, um, might be another time of the day if you're in another part of the world. But hope you all have plans to make the most out of your Sunday. So, if you're getting this, can you do me a big favor now and type OK in the comments, just so I've got some reassurance that you are hearing and seeing me okay. All right, so this is week 5 of the series I've been doing. So this week we're going to talk about how to stop losing patients through your website. So last week we talked about choosing a platform for your website, whether that be Wix or Squarespace or WordPress or something else. But today we're going to get into the weeds a bit more about how to make sure that your website is actually doing the job it's intended for. So what we're going to learn specifically is why your website is losing patients, what a high converting clinic website actually looks like, and how you can track your digital presence to improve results. So again, I'm going to make some bold assumptions here that you are watching because you are either the owner or manager or planning to become owner or manager of an optometry practice, audiology practice, or an ophthalmology practice. And that you're here because you're actually interested in growing such a practice. So just to give you a heads up, if there's anything in this live presentation that resonates with where you're at right now, feel free to get in touch with me to arrange a free one-on-one Zoom call. You can do that through my website, opticsdigital.net, and I'll have some contact details at the end of the presentation. So just quickly, so who am I? So my name is Paul Salloway. I've been involved in digital marketing and web consulting since back in 2008. So about 3 and a bit years ago, I started Optics Digital Marketing as a new agency. I've got a small team of people helping me now. I've got articles published through My Vision Optometry magazine and iSmart magazine. We've helped more than 20 individual clients in eye care and vision care in Australia. So if you want to know more about the work that my agency's done, if you want to see some testimonials from clients, and I suggest you go back and take a look at the first episode in this series where I shared some of the graphs and some of those things. All right, so let's talk about, so why is your website losing patients? Well, I want to share a couple of statistics with you here. The first one is that 88% of website visitors won't return after a bad experience. That comes from a report. I can put the link in the show notes, but it was from a report that was done by a group that spent, they say, 200,000 hours of research into user experience, and that was one of their conclusions from that effort. So so having a bad experience will turn people away, and I think that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? We've all probably had that bad user experience and say to ourselves, well, let's keep looking, let's go somewhere else. Another report that I found confirmed that 94% of first impressions are design related. And again, that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? So when people are online, they're scanning, they're browsing, they're not necessarily reading carefully. So it's the visual design, it's the overall impression that really makes those first impressions with visitors to your website. So in this article, they made the comparison that a badly designed website is a bit like having a cranky receptionist at the front of your clinic. So if you had a staff member who was actively rude and discouraging potential patients from engaging with you, then they probably wouldn't last long, right? So, but people tolerate having a bad website, so it doesn't really make sense. So your website is your 24/7 front desk. So you need to make sure it's working for you and not working against you. So keep in mind that the whole purpose of having a website is to provide clarity about what it is you do, to build trust with potential patients, and offer a smooth transition from an interested visitor to a booked patient. So those are the three jobs that your website has. So the key takeaway here is that patients don't leave because they're not interested. They leave because there are barriers to taking action. And we'll talk about what some of those might be. So what do you need to fix? What do you need to fix on your website? Well, I think the first one is having clear messaging about what you do. So remember the old joke that everyone's favorite radio station is WIIFM. What's in it for me? So when people come to your website, the first thing they see, that section, we call that above the fold. That whole section we also call a hero section. So it should say immediately how you can help that person. It should say who you help, what you do, and why it matters. One of the things, this is one of my pet peeves I see, I still see a lot, is you'll come to a website and it'll say like, welcome to XYZ Vision Care. And I'm thinking, well, what a missed opportunity. I mean, you don't need to say that. I know whose website I'm on. I clicked on the link, right? And if nothing else, you should at least have like a logo in the header somewhere. That should be all the proof that I need as to whose website I'm on. So welcome to XYZ Vision Care. It's not really telling me anything, and it's a missed opportunity. So I would encourage you to think about that. So it would be much better to say something like, eye tests, eyewear, and myopia control, if that's one of the things that your clinic has a particular interest in. So unclear messaging, and I'm going to say here that I think having some kind of a seasonal pop-up can also help make that first impression that what you are offering is relevant to visitors at that particular time. Now, I know you're all shaking your head out there because we all hate pop-ups. I hate pop-ups. And there is a right way and a wrong way to implement what I'm talking about here. So we've all seen the wrong way, where you arrive at a website and then like almost immediately, boom, you've got this thing coming up in your face, right? So at least give people an opportunity to engage with the site before you go interrupting their experience in that way. The other thing is, we've all seen where you go to a website and every page you go to, you keep getting this pop-up in your face. It keeps following you around like a bad smell. When you get a pop-up, or when a visitor gets a pop-up, they should be able to just click close and then not see it again. So the way that we implement pop-ups for clients is, one, somebody has to actually engage with the page first of all, like scroll 50% of it before that pop-up even gets activated. And the second is that if somebody clicks close, or they click the convert button, then they don't see it again for X number of days. That could be like 2 weeks or something. It's just deactivated. They don't see it again. So bottom line, there is a right way and a wrong way to do this. Last week I talked about why I usually recommend WordPress to clients, because WordPress has a lot of great tools available, a lot of great plugins, extensive ecosystem. And so we can definitely do this with WordPress. Other website platforms, I'm not so sure. So your mileage may vary. Another thing that you should fix is a weak or missing CTA. So CTA stands for call to action. So a call to action could be like book now, or request an appointment now. So it's something that makes it clear what next step you want the visitor to take. So it's important that you have those booking buttons on your web pages. So it's a cardinal sin. It's a cardinal sin if somebody comes to your any page on your website and they're ready to book, they're ready to hand over money, but you're not making it clear how they can do that, right? So have a booking button always visible. I think having it in the header is always a good idea. Doesn't hurt to have it a couple of other times on key pages as well. But also keep in mind that for certain types of things, some people may not be ready to book right away. Okay, so let's say somebody's, maybe somebody's experienced some dizziness, and they're not sure if it's an ear related problem or not. This is for the audiologists out there. So you might have a booking button that, encouraging people to book an assessment with you, but it wouldn't hurt to also have maybe some sort of an opt-in where people could get a PDF, a resource that explains, like, connection between, let's say, dizziness and other ear issues, like, does earwax cause dizziness, for example. So if people opt in to get that kind of resource, now they become part of your email marketing list, and you can keep that relationship going. You can put them into what we call a nurture sequence, like maybe every 2 weeks, send them a follow-up email with more information that they've already stuck up their hand and said, I want to know about this. So yes, of course, you must have a clear call to action. Doesn't hurt to have that secondary call to action as well. Even like if somebody books an appointment, a lot of websites will have like a thank you page. So they book the thing online, and then they get redirected to a thank you page. That could be an opportunity for you to encourage them to follow you on social media, for example. So follow your Facebook business page, follow your YouTube account, that sort of thing. So these are secondary CTAs. Having a cluttered layout and navigation, right? So the old saying again, if you confuse them, you lose them. So everything on your web page should serve a purpose. So before you add anything to a website, what are you trying to achieve with this, is the question that you should ask. Confusing navigation systems, pay attention to these. Like if it doesn't belong if it doesn't necessarily have to go in the main navigation, stick it in the footer. So one of the marketing guys I follow online, a guy called Don Miller. So he talks about the footer being like the third drawer in your kitchen. It's the place where we stuff all the things that we might look at one day, but probably not. So the main navigation should be the things that absolutely we know visitors are going to access. The footer is where you can stick the footer's like that third drawer in the kitchen where we can stick things like your privacy link, your disclaimer link, terms of service, all this other stuff that they can find if they're really looking for. So you've all heard of the KISS principle, I suppose, KISS. So keep it short and simple, or if you're like one of my university professors, I used to tell the class, keep it simple, stupid. So simplicity wins. So I brought along one of my favorite books, so you should be able to see that. Steve Krug. This book's a bit of a classic now. Don't Make Me Think. To say the common sense approach to web usability. So he really makes the case that you don't want to force visitors to burn more mental calories than they need to. So we're biologically programmed to avoid burning unnecessary calories. So as part of that, also remember another acronym, the DRY principle. So DRY stands for don't repeat yourself. So I see this sometimes. So this is another one of my pet peeves, is where you have a link to something like in the main header across the top of your website, and then a link to the same thing in the footer. So you're repeating the link. Why? So as a user, now I've got to burn mental calories thinking, like, why are there two separate links? Are they two separate pages? Do they want me to do two separate things? Now I'm starting to have questions, right? So I think good rule of thumb is every page on your website should only have one navigation link to get there. Trust signals. So lack of trust signals can also be turning away patients. So team photos, I think, are important. I see this a lot where you go to a website and there'll be like a photo of an empty an empty clinic. It'll be like a photo of all these, there'll be like your frame board. There'll be lots, you can see lots of glasses and frames in there, but not a person to be found anywhere. So it's like, I'm thinking, who runs this place? Is this clinic managed by ghosts? What's going on here? So have some photos of your team. Have some photos of at least the principals, right? And I really do think it's worth spending a few bucks on getting a professional photographer in for the day. Just because somebody can hold an iPhone and click a button doesn't make them a photographer. I think it is worth doing. And I think here's a pro tip: before you get a photographer in, talk with your webmaster or talk with your marketing agency or talk with whoever is managing your website about what kind of photos they need, and share that with your photographer, because I've seen some cases where people, will spend clinic practice managers will spend like $500 or $600 to get a photographer in, and then they take a bunch of photos that are not really what they wanted, not really what's going to be most usable on their website. So make sure you get make sure you're clear before you get a photographer in, like what are you actually trying to accomplish for the day. So authority credentials. So like if you are members of particular organizations, so like the what's it called, the Orthokeratology Association of Oceania. I probably got that wrong, but you know what I mean. So if you're a member of a particular professional body, then I think it's well worth having those credentials on the key pages, the homepage, for example. So if you're if you're a surgeon and you've completed like a fellowship in something, by all means, I think it doesn't necessarily have to go on the homepage, but there should at least be a prominent page with your professional profile on there where it's mentioned. I think another thing is that you can link back to your LinkedIn profile. So Google likes to see that, by the way. So it builds up your EEAT factors, the expertise, experience, authority, and trust. So that helps you. That helps your website to get visibility in Google. So having that link back to having your professional profile link back to LinkedIn is helpful for that reason. Social proof. So that could be things like being mentioned in publications. So I think testimonials is a tricky one, and we won't have time to get into that today. But if you are a member of AHPRA, then I would encourage you to check AHPRA's rules about using testimonials. If you're an audiologist and you're not a member of AHPRA, then Audiology Australia also has guidance rules that pretty much mirror what AHPRA says. So just look into that. I think at the least, what you can do is like show your Google rating, like the number of stars on there. But even there, you have to be a little bit careful, because Google's terms and conditions say that you cannot imply that Google has endorsed you in any way. So you can't say something like 5-star Google rated clinic, for example. That sounds like Google's audited you and given you an endorsement. So you have to try to do it in a way that doesn't imply that Google is giving you an endorsement in some way. Too much friction in the booking process, so complicated booking forms. I had a family member recently told me that she wanted to book an appointment for her son, and she said she got to the booking form, the online booking form, and there are all these different type of appointment options. And she says, I don't know what each one of these means. So, you're creating confusion and you're creating complications. Keep it simple, the old KISS principle again. And limited booking options too. Like, not everybody wants to fill out an online form, just as not everybody wants to make a phone call, right? So I hate using the phone. I'd rather do things online. But, other people might have different preferences. And of course, if it's out of hours, if it's 10 o'clock at night and all you've got is a phone number on there, well, you're making people put a note in their diary to follow up the next day when they're ready to take action right then. Having email contact addresses, if you've got an email contact address, make sure somebody's checking it. So I sent off an email to a clinic this week, just after Easter, and I got a reply back about 2 days later. So, I think if you're going to show your email address, you're going to make sure that those are getting checked and responded to promptly. Unanswered questions. So this is one of those barriers that I talked about earlier. So unanswered questions are, if people have questions, if there are people are uncertain or unclear about certain things, that's a big roadblock. So people might have questions about payments, for example, like, what kind of insurance schemes do you work with? Do you do bulk billing? What type of payment methods do you take? Do you accept Bitcoin? Probably none of you do, but you know what I'm getting at. So there's people have different questions around that. That's a big one. What kind of services do you provide? Do you, if you're in eye care, do you offer dry eye treatment? So if you're in hearing care, do you do tinnitus therapy, that sort of thing? So people really want to know what you do before they take the step of getting in contact with you. Products, I see a lot of questions that people have around particular products. So again, so there should be pages on your website that explain like what brands you carry. If you're in eye care, like what types of frames do you stock, and make sure those pages are maintained as well, because I know that frame boards can change over time, but make sure somebody's keeping an eye on that stuff. Logistics, like how do I get to your clinic? So where's the nearest bus stop? Maybe I don't have a car, right? How do I get there by train? Is there parking available, right? There should be some Google map embedded on your site, or at least a link to Google Maps. What are your business hours? This is another big one, so people might be unsure if you're open on weekends. People might be unsure what your opening times are, your closing times, all these things. So one of the things that I think is becoming more popular, and I want to really encourage you to think about, is having an AI chatbot on your website that can answer a lot of these things. And if this sounds like something that you are interested in, then I would encourage you to reach out to me, and again, contact details at the end of this, because this is a free trial that I'm offering to potential clients of Optics Digital Marketing, where we can implement an AI chatbot for a period of 3 months, completely free. And I think it's really helpful in a lot of ways. Like, one, yes, it does help out visitors and fill in these gaps in their knowledge about what you do. But also it keeps a record of the types of questions that people ask, right? Anonymized, of course, but it keeps a record of the questions, and it really gives important clues as to what type of information is missing from your site. And so it really gives you some good directions about the type of things that you need to fix on your website. So again, offering a 3-month free trial on that. If you're interested, reach out to me. But that's another thing that I think a lot of people are coming to expect now with all businesses, is to have some sort of like AI chatbot where they can get real-time feedback. And then another thing about that too is that we train the chatbot on your business, so it only responds from what it knows based on the content on your site. It doesn't go hallucinating facts. And also we put guardrails in place so it doesn't go giving medical advice, which is something you don't want to do. It'll only respond to queries about sort of like retail questions, or around the logistics, that sort of thing. So poor presentation, I talked before about how bad design, that'll turn people away, probably never to come back again. So a website that looks like it was a website that looks amateur, poorly designed, it's not a good first impression. The old saying, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. One thing I sometimes see is like a website that'll have like a bunch of code like on the page, and it's clear that they've had some sort of a widget or something embedded on the site that's broken. And when that happens, you'll get just like a bunch of code appearing on your site. That's a really bad look. It's also a security vulnerability potentially as well, because you're telling bad actors some possibly important information about how your website was constructed. Not having a what they call an SSL certificate. So you've maybe seen this, where you go to a website and Chrome or Firefox will send you a message saying, privacy violation or privacy error, something like that. The information that you submit on this website can potentially, be exposed. So fortunately, I think most people realize now that you need to have an SSL certificate on your website, because personally, I won't engage in any website that doesn't have that. It's just not worth it. So the bottom line here is, if your website isn't clear and trustworthy, it won't convert. Okay, clear and trustworthy. Those are part of the job of your website. It's part of the reason for having your website in the first place. So does that make sense? So if any of these tips are helpful for where you're at with your business right now, can you type a 1 in the comment? That would really, I'd really like to know if these suggestions are resonating with you right now. All right, so let's say we've made some of these changes. How can we track? How can we see if we're getting results? So I forget who it was. I think it might have been Peter. It might have been the management consultant Peter Drucker, who said that what gets measured gets managed. So, or to put it another way, you can't fix what you aren't tracking. So every website should have at least Google Analytics installed. Okay, so Google Analytics, it's a free tool. One of the default reports that Google gives you, it's on the left-hand side in the menu under engagement. One of the default reports they give you is web page engagement. Or so what you can see from there is like what pages people are actually arriving at on your website, and then whether or not they are engaging with that page. Now, in Google speak, engagement has a very specific meaning. So it means that they've stayed on that page for at least 10 seconds, or they've converted, meaning they've clicked on a conversion event, or they've clicked through to another page on your website. Okay, so if any of those things are true, then they count that as a conversion. Sorry, if any of those things are true, they count that as an engaged session. So back in the old day, they used to have, like, I think it was called a bounce metric, or a bounce percentage, meaning if somebody came to your web page and then they left, they called that a bounce. But I think they stopped using that metric because it's a bit ambiguous about whether whether a bounce is really a bad thing after all. I mean, if somebody comes to your page and they find what they're looking at and they leave, is that necessarily a bad thing? So now they use engagement, which I think is a much better metric. So CTA clicks, I talked before about what a CTA is, a call to action. So your buttons like book now. Now, unfortunately, by default, Google Analytics doesn't give you that. So you can track, for example, a thank you page. For example, if somebody goes to your booking form and then after they complete the form, they go to a thank you page. So you can track that pretty easily. But if you're just trying to track how many people clicked on a book now button, it's not so straightforward. But there is a way to do that through another Google product called Google Tag Manager. And it's a little bit technical, so I recommend that you talk to your webmaster or talk to your marketing agency about how to set this up. But it is possible to track clicks on buttons and links through your website using Google Tag Manager. So conversion leakage. So are people finishing the booking process? Like, it's all very well to click on these book now buttons, but if they don't follow through and actually book an appointment, there's a problem. And I've seen this happen, and it really is, it can be a tough one to diagnose. Like, you've got to really figure out, like, why is this happening? It could be maybe that something's broken. It could be maybe pages are loading slow. It could be the user experience is confusing. So you really have to look into this further. And I guess an extension of that is if people are booking but they're not turning up. So that's another problem. And I think that that should probably immediately get you looking at what are your follow-up systems. So are you sending out like an SMS message the day before? Do you have a telephone follow-up procedure, that sort of thing? So bums on seats is the ultimate goal, right? So related to this is user experience. So there are tools that you can install to get what they call a heat map. So a heat map is just like you'll see like an image of, let's say, your homepage, an image, and it'll be the parts where a user moves their mouse or their cursor. That will appear in red or orange, and that sort of just gives you an indication of what people are looking at, because as a rule, people sort of hover over with their cursor, whatever is capturing their attention. Doesn't work so well with mobile devices, of course, and so that's a big problem with that. Recordings. So using the same tools, we can anonymously record how people interact on certain pages. So there is a tool called Hotjar, 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 which you can install for free to get some of these things. So I've used it. I don't know. I feel a bit ambivalent about some of these tools though, because they'll show you what people are doing on your site, but not why. And I think the why is really important. And I think for that, you really need to be able to get inside the head of the users. And I really think the only way to do that is to do proper UX testing, user experience testing. So there is a service available where you can basically hire a panel of testers. Like, I'd suggest at least 3. You can get more, but at least 3 people. Set them a task, say, or a series of tasks, and say, okay, I want you to go to this page. I want you to find out when our clinic is open. Okay, and so that'll be their task, and you get a screen recording of what they do on your page, and they should be verbalizing their thoughts as they're doing this. So I guarantee this will give you insights that you never had before about your website, your web pages, and maybe things that you thought were working but aren't. So, I talked before about people not completing a booking form. This is a really good way of debugging that. So good old Steve in his book, he talks a lot about user testing panels, usability testing panels, and the benefits of doing that. So another thing you can do is do A/B testing. So A/B testing, also called split tests. So you can test like one headline versus another headline, A versus B, and just see over time which of those work better. So it could be maybe like using an orange button versus a green button. Okay, so sometimes little changes like this can move the needle in surprising ways, but you don't know if you don't test them. So again, coming back to last week's presentation about choosing a website platform, WordPress has a lot of plugins that make these type of A/B tests possible. On other platforms, I don't know, mileage may vary, right? There is a thing though that you need to be aware with A/B testing. You need I think it's like at least 1,000 data points. So in order to make statistically reliable assumptions. So it's been a long time since I did business statistics, but I think that there's some sort of mathematical rule that says you need to have at least 1,000 data points in whatever sample you're looking at. So YouTube actually has this feature now with their videos. So when you upload a video, you can tell it that you want to A/B test a title for your video, or A/B test a thumbnail. But again, you need to have a certain number of views before those A/B tests kick in, and I think it's at least 1,000. Email campaigns. So, I'm a big fan of email marketing. I think it's low-hanging fruit. I think it's something that every business should be doing. I don't understand why more businesses aren't doing it. It's such a simple, high return activity. All of the email marketing tools that you use, and the one that we like is MailerLite. Through those tools, you can track the email open rates, like what percentage of people are opening the emails that you send them. Okay. If people aren't opening the emails, then, every now and again, I suggest go through and do a bit of a purge. If you've sent 5 emails to someone, but they haven't opened any of them, then, maybe they're not even checking that email account anymore. So, don't send emails to people who don't want to read them. That's my advice. So check your email open rates, and I think even more important than open rate is click-through rate. So every email that you send, every marketing email, should have some kind of a call to action on there, like a link or a button. So click here to watch this video, click here to read this blog post, click here to book an appointment, right? And that's one of the key metrics that you should be tracking as well with your email marketing, to see what's performing and what isn't. Social media. So you should be tracking which of your posts get the most engagement. So think of social media as like an extension of your website. So your Facebook business page, your Instagram account, your YouTube channel, think of these as extensions of your website, and you should be checking what content in these places gets the most engagement. So I was talking to a client just this week, and we've been doing a lot of work with him on creating video content. And I said a few months ago, I have a theory that when we use some kind of a prop in the thumbnail, that those videos get more engagement. So when I say a prop, I'm talking about like holding up an eyeball model or something like that. And so after a few months, we actually went back and looked at the Meta Business Suite results, and it actually bared that out, that the thumbnails where he was using some kind of a prop were getting more engagement. So things like this, you should be testing ideas, testing your hypotheses. And the last point on here is patient surveys. So I really am a strong believer that as practice managers, you should be asking your patients to complete a very simple patient survey either before or after their appointment. So I think it's really helpful to get insights as to how people found you. Okay, so I mean, analytics tools, they're great and all that, but I don't think I still think that getting that first person feedback is very helpful. Like, ask your patients, did you hear about us, or did you find us through Google, through social media? Was it word of mouth? Was it referral from another healthcare professional? I think you really want to know those things. It'll tell you, if nothing else, like whether your SEO is working, whether Google's actually listing you when people search for an optometrist near me, that sort of thing, or audiologist near me, right? And I think another question that's really worthwhile asking is, what would you like to learn about? So give people a few options. Would you like to learn more about like myopia control? Would you like to learn more about contact lenses, right? So these are things that you may not necessarily have time in while they're in the consultation chair to talk about these things. But if people opt in and raise their hand and say, yeah, I'm interested in this stuff, then you can add them into an email marketing nurture list where you actually provide that education. So if you're an audiologist, it might be, are you interested to learn more about tinnitus? Are you interested to hear more about hearing aid care and maintenance, things like this? So it's a worthwhile question to ask. And remember, again, the KISS principle, just keep the form very simple. You could even have it like on an iPad at the front counter, and just get your receptionists trained to ask patients if they would mind filling in a little short survey. You could even incentivize it if you like, and give them some sort of a freebie, or some sort of a discount, 5% discount on their next visit if they fill out the form for you. I don't know. You can decide that one. But I think patient surveys are really valuable, and I would really encourage more people to be using them. All right. Does anyone have any questions before we move on? So remember, again, the key takeaway here: you can't improve what you don't measure. So the data will show you where you're losing patients and what you need to work on. So final thought for the day. So growth doesn't just come from more visitor traffic. It comes from making it easier for patients to say yes. So the term that we use in marketing is conversion rate optimization. So if you can move the needle from, say, 10% of visitors booking an appointment to 15% or 20%, that's a big improvement, right? It might look like a small percentage change, but it's actually a big improvement. So conversion rate optimization is not something that you should sleep on. So talk to your webmaster, talk to your marketing agency if you have one, about how to improve these things. All right, so if you'd like to get in touch with me, as I said, so I'm happy to have a quick chat, free of charge, no obligation. If you'd like some help with your marketing strategy. Also, as I said before, we have this free offer coming up where you can trial an AI chatbot on your website for 3 months. And so you can get in touch with me at the agency website, which is opticsdigital.net. You can find me on LinkedIn, or you can email me directly. Right, so let's finish there for today. So I hope everyone's got value out of this, and also I'll also be curious as to what day and what time slot works best for you if you do want to attend these sessions in real time. You know, whether that be a weekday evening, a weekday morning, or a Sunday morning like today. So any feedback would give me some indications of what time works best, and we'll see if we can accommodate that. All right, so have a great day, everyone. See you next